Welcome to Misconceptions of the Colonial Witch Hunts, video number 10, Captain John Alden, From the Sea to the Salem Witch Hunt. In a previous Misconceptions video titled The Putnams, the Militia, and the Salem Witch Hunt, Sorting Fact from Assumption, I detailed a misconception that some of the Putnam men who swore out complaints used their military ranks as a police force in 1692. Based on documents available, there isn't any evidence that this happened. However, Captain John Alden's wrongful accusation could be an example in 1692 of wartime animosities being repurposed as bewitchment charges. Alden's presence in Salem village that year was accidental, but his reputation as a Boston captain, suspected of consorting with the enemy, may have made him a perfect scapegoat for wartime frustration. John Alden, son of John and Priscilla Alden of Plymouth and later Duxbury, Massachusetts, followed a seafaring path from an early age. Alden was a mariner of Boston and a sometimes traveling seamate of Bartholomew Gedney, a future magistrate in 1692. Alden spent years traveling the Atlantic trade routes passing through the North Shore, where he possibly conducted business at Salem in May of 1692. Let's look at Alden's travels and dealings just prior to his arrival at Salem Village that year. In January of 1692, Anthony Checkley, who had represented Alden in several legal disputes, filed suit against him for £5 in unpaid fees. The court, however, found in Alden's favor. On that very same day, another matter was brought before the magistrates. Mark Emerson, who had been held captive, accused Alden of selling gunpowder and shot to the natives. The court dismissed this charge as well, but this charge is mentioned by a mysterious bystander 4 months later at the Salem Village Meeting House after Captain John Alden was accused of bewitchment. In February of 1692, Alden was recorded at Sagadoc, Maine, holding ransom money and working to secure the release of English captives taken during frontier conflicts. Though he had succeeded in freeing some, the inhabitants of nearby York, still reeling from very violent attacks, were ready to abandon their settlement entirely. A month later, in March, Alden and Captain James Commerce set sail from Boston for St. John, Canada, carrying more ransom funds and French prisoners. Their mission was to exchange the captives held by the French for Colonel Edward Tyng, Alden's son, and several others. But the plan basically failed, in part because some of those previously freed chose to remain in French territory. As a result, both Colonel Tyng and Alden's son were sent on to Quebec instead of returning home. Back in Massachusetts, rumors swirled. On May 31st in 1692, a formal complaint was sworn out by John Holton and Captain Jonathan Walcott on behalf of several of the afflicted Salem girls. Mary Walcott, who was Captain Walcott's daughter, Mercy Lewis, Abigail Williams, Ann Putnam Jr., Elizabeth Booth, and Mary Warren. They accused Captain Alden of bewitchment. Robert Califf later published a vivid account of Alden's examination before the magistrates at the Salem Village Meeting House. During the proceedings, one of Alden's accusers mistakenly pointed to the wrong man as her tormentor. A captain standing behind her leaned forward, whispered in her ear, and she quickly corrected herself and declared that it was actually Captain John Alden who had afflicted her. When asked how she knew this, she simply replied, "The man behind me told me so." Who was that man? Since the person she incorrectly identified at first was in fact a captain, we know that at least one person of rank was in the audience. Could the man standing behind her, who was also described as holding her up, be Mark Emerson? Maybe. Emerson is the one that accused Alden using very similar words in his court case 4 months prior. Or was it someone else who had close ties with Emerson and Alden? I will keep my eyes peeled for more details as they become available. The examination descended into a spectacle. The judges ordered Alden and the afflicted to move out into the street, where a circle was formed. There, the same accuser repeated that Alden had sold powder and shot to the French and Indians, and even claimed that he had taken native women as lovers and fathered their children. How could such a young girl have known those rumors unless she was prompted by the men feeding her these lines? The mystery man standing behind her in the meeting house? Returning to the meeting house, Alden faced further chaos as the girls continually convulsed and fell into fits. He turned to his former comrade, Bartholomew Gedney, seated among the judges, and asked bitterly, why would he come to Salem only to harm people that he had never met? Gedney, once confident of Alden's honesty, seemed shaken. His faith in his old friend wavered under the pressure of the moment. And Alden, I can't imagine how he must have felt at that moment. But then Alden expressed sorrow that Gedney had lent support to the accusers, and he basically said, and I'm going to paraphrase what he said, "Bro, these people are lying." But then he said to him that God would clear up his innocency. At the judge's command, Alden was told to look upon his accusers, and as he did, they collapsed in apparent agony. When they carried when the accusers were carried in to him, still in their agony, the moment he touched them, their bodies quickly calmed. Proof for the court that bewitchment was at play. And Alden continued to protest, basically saying again that they had lied. These afflicted girls were lying. Alden, his statements to the magistrates basically fell onto deaf ears. But he was committed to the custody of the marshal and sent directly to the Boston jail, from which he later managed to escape. Months later, in December of 1692, Nathaniel Williams and Anthony Checkley posted a 200-pound bond, pledging that Alden would appear at the next session of the Superior Court of Judicature and the Court of Assize in Boston to answer to these charges. As far as I know, Captain Alden never stood trial. His name faded from the witch hunt proceedings, but his ordeal became one of the more remarkable examples of how the hysteria of 1692 reached even beyond Salem, dragging into its madness a son of two of Plymouth Colony's most enduring figures. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Stay tuned to the next installment of The Averils of Chipping Norton from Ipswich and beyond as I continue to speak on William Jr.'s children. That video will upload on November 12th, 2025 around 1 p.m. And thank you very much, everybody, for listening, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.